The word of the week this week is ατενιζω. I look intently at someone or something. Ατενιζω. If it were an infinitive, ατενιζειν, to look intently at someone or something. It's an important word for us English speakers because ατενιζω morphed into a Latin word, attentio, which becomes our English word attention. When you pay attention to something, you focus intently on that something or someone, right? So ατενιζω, I look intently at someone or something. Pretty cool word. It's almost exclusively used by Luke. Almost every example of it is found in the book of Acts. There's one found in 2 Corinthians, but there's debate on 2 Corinthians as to authorship, authenticity, and whether or not it's more than one letter. Is part of it 3 Corinthians? You can go and do some research and dig into what you think about that. That part doesn't matter that much for today's word of the week. ατενιζω, I look intently at something or someone. The first example we're going to see is in Acts chapter 1, verse 10, and it's Jesus ascending into heaven after the period of days from the resurrection to his departure for heaven. And I'm reading from the ESV, and I have supplied the Koine word where it applies. And while they were gazing, ατενιζοντες, it's a participle, an active participle, present active participle from ατενιζω, while they were gazing intently into heaven as he went, behold, 2 men stood by them in white robes and said, Men of Galilee, why do you stand looking into heaven? This Jesus who was taken up from you into heaven will come in the same way as you saw him go into heaven. So, ατενιζοντες, the participle, they're intently gazing. They're not just glancing at the sky. They're not looking at the clouds. They're intently gazing. They're studying. They're focusing on Jesus as he goes from earth into heaven. And sure they were, wouldn't you? Let's take a look at the next example, which is in Acts chapter 7, dealing with the stoning of Stephen. The stoning of Stephen is a fascinating story. It starts in Acts chapter 6, where he's being brought before leaders and rulers. And the framework of the story is a covenant lawsuit. They want to put Stephen on trial for heresy, and ultimately Stephen puts the entire community, the covenant people, on trial for their infidelities to God through the generations. At the culmination of this trial, here's a spoiler alert, they stone him to death for the things that he said. But let's look at this important key happening that led to the stoning. This is Acts chapter 7, verses 55 and 56, again from the ESV with the Koine supplied. Now, when they heard these things, they were enraged, and they ground their teeth at him. This is the infamous gnashing of teeth. But he, full of the Holy Spirit, gazed, ατενίσας, aorist active indicative third person singular, gazed into heaven and saw the glory of God and Jesus standing at the right hand of God. And he said, Behold, I see the heavens opened and the Son of Man standing at the right hand of God. So something incredibly important to notice here. In the first 2 examples, when Jesus goes from earth to heaven to remain until the parousia, to the second coming, to the establishment of the eternal kingdom, our word of the week, ατενιζω, in that case in the participle form, ατενιζοντες, is used to describe their careful focus, their intent watching as Jesus ascended. Then when Stephen, at the conclusion of his testimony in the covenant lawsuit, looks up into heaven, it's the same word in an aorist indicative form. As he gazed into heaven, he didn't just look at the ceiling, he didn't just look at the sky, he gazed with intent focus toward heaven, and heaven opened up, and what did he see? He saw Jesus standing by the glory of God. Where is the glory? The Shekinah over the mercy seat, the throne of God. There is Jesus at the right hand of the Father in heaven. pretty magnificent stuff. And so the same word that sees him go is the same word that sees Jesus at the right hand of the Father in heaven. I can't imagine that's an accident, because we have other words for looking at things, right? There's blepo, there's edon, there are words that can be used to say, well, he was looking here, he was looking there. And to that point, let's go to our last example, which is in Acts 14. And Paul is preaching in Lystra, and there's a man who's in attendance who was lame from birth. Let's take a look. Now at Lystra there was a man sitting who could not use his feet. He was crippled from birth and had never walked. He listened to Paul speaking, and Paul, looking intently, ατενιζω, the same word from Acts 7 with Stephen, looking intently at him and seeing edon, so he carefully examined, and what did he see? Seeing that he had faith to be made well, said in a loud voice, "Stand upright on your feet." And he sprang up and began walking. So we get two kinds of looking in Acts 14. Paul does that intent gaze, that attention-paying focus. And what does he see as a picture of this man due to that intent focus? He says, this is the kind of guy who has the faith to be healed here in this place today. And he says to him, as we've already read, stand upright on your feet, and he gets up and walks around. Intent looking is not the same thing as just seeing. You know, when you were a kid, you probably heard that hearing and listening are not the same thing, right? Anyone can hear what's going on around them, but are you really listening? Are you paying attention? And here we have different kinds of looking. ατενιζω, I carefully look, I focus, I pay attention to what's happening. Great word, interesting stuff. If that was good for you, please do me the great service of subscribing to the channel, hitting like, share, and all that good stuff. And until next time, Charis Kai Irene Humin, grace and peace to you.